A 46-year-old rape will remain unsolved, even though DNA evidence could help identify at least one of the people involved.
That decision comes as the Clayton County District Attorney's Office tells the Fox 5 team they have agreed to help clear the name of the only man convicted in the case.
Fox 5 team reporter Randy Travis is here now to explain. Randy.
That's right, Marissa and Russ. We've already told you about Terry Wanzer, convicted of that rape so long ago. He still insists the victim identified the wrong guy, and new DNA testing backs up his innocence, but not enough, say prosecutors. This was Terry Wanzer the day he was charged with the rape of a teenage girl back in the summer of 1973.
I've never stopped fighting, man.
And this was Terry Wanzer in the summer of 2019. Now an old man in failing health, still determined to prove he did not do it.
And there's nobody can sit there and defute that, no way, and nothing.
Do you think Terry Wanzer is an innocent man?
I don't know. I don't know.
Wanzer was convicted largely on the testimony of the 17-year-old victim. She was positive he was one of the two men who tricked her and her aunt into pulling over on I-75 late one night. The guys taking her to a secluded spot where she was repeatedly raped and then allowed to drive away. Clayton County Police never dusted for fingerprints, and back then, no court had heard of DNA. Wanzer had multiple alibi witnesses testify in his trial. It would do him no good.
That made me sick to my stomach. I was trembling.
While serving a life sentence, Wanzer passed a polygraph, earning the support of the polygraph examiner and eventually the lead investigator for the Georgia Pardons and Paroles. They helped him win a pardon for reason of innocence. Later, the General Assembly even gave Wanzer $100,000. But Clayton County refused to set aside his conviction, meaning even with the pardon, Wanzer would live his life as a convicted rapist.
I go to apply to rent a house, and they said, we can't have you a sex offender if they can't do that.
Last year, the Innocence Project agreed to represent Wanzer. The evidence left behind on the victim's clothes was re-examined. Analysts found two different male sperm samples. Neither matched Wanzer's DNA.
A capital letter, sir. DNA.
The Clayton County DA's office agreed to reopen the case, perhaps even to see whether the DNA samples matched two other suspects who failed polygraphs decades ago when Wanzer got his pardon. But the case is now closed again. No one else will be prosecuted. Why doesn't DNA clear Terry Wanzer in your mind?
DNA doesn't necessarily clear Terry Wanzer in my mind because there could be alternate explanations for the DNA being there.
Acting DA John Fowler says many rapists do not leave DNA behind, and one of the male samples could belong to a boyfriend the victim may have had sex with around that time. But the biggest roadblock in prosecuting someone else, that victim, who is now in her 60s.
I will tell you that the victim is absolutely 100% sure that she's right.
In spite of the DNA testing saying that she's wrong?
Yes. She's absolutely sure that she's right.
And consider this. When Fowler's team reviewed the old case file, they found this stunner. Years after his conviction, while still in prison, Terry Wanzer hand-wrote a 6-page confession letter naming a second rapist. He later told his original trial judge the letter was fantasy, written in hopes police would reopen the case and eventually discover he was wrongly convicted. The man he named later failed a polygraph, but the case was not reopened.
Confessing to a crime is typically not the way that someone gets the attention of someone else doing it.
Still, if Wanzer and his attorneys file a motion to set aside the conviction, Fowler says he will not stand in the way. The evidence is gone. Their victim will not cooperate. It would be impossible, he says, to retry Wanzer, even if they could discredit the new DNA results. But whether or not Wanzer did it, there's at least one person involved in a 46-year-old rape who will never face justice. That second man. You've got DNA evidence that could identify that second person. Does the victim not want that second person caught?
We've spoken with her, and she has indicated to us that she's no longer interested in being a part of that. I think we have to respect those wishes.
Wanzer told me he is saddened by the DA's decision not to reopen the case. It's not clear whether he'll file that motion to set aside his conviction. He's upset that the two men he believes really committed the rape are getting away with it, even when there's DNA evidence that could prove it.